Hi, welcome to Gimme the Bible, where God's Word speaks for itself. In continuing our discussion of the church, I want to note the distinction made in the New Testament between the church on a universal, wide-scale, worldwide level, and the church on a local level, according to geography. And let me just suggest that when Jesus gave his life, as we talked about in the last video, gave his life to redeem the church, that body of saved individuals, well, he wasn't talking about one specific church in one specific location. He was talking about the group as a whole of saved individuals. For instance, look in Ephesians chapter 5. Now, there's really tons of verses that we could go to illustrate this point and really to show the distinction between the church in a universal, worldwide sense in the church on a local sense. Notice Ephesians chapter 5. And Ephesians is a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to the church, specifically at Ephesus. But notice what principles he lays down in Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now, surely we recognize that when Paul says that Christ gave himself up for the church, he's not just talking about the church there at Ephesus, but he's talking about the church as a whole. Okay? That means that if I'm a Christian here in the United States, or in a specific state like Florida, and there is a Christian in the state of Washington, and there's a Christian in Brazil, and there's a Christian in Canada, and a Christian in France, and you just kind of go on, we, as a group, would make up the church. We would be part of Jesus' church. If you are a Christian, it doesn't matter where you are. If you are saved in the way that Jesus has commanded us to be saved, then Jesus says, you are a part of my church. You're a part of his kingdom. Now, that's the widespread sense. But we also need to recognize that there are specific bodies of Christians that come together and meet for worship as a church in the local sense. So, for instance, yes, I'm a part of the church just like the guy and the girl in Washington or in Brazil or in France or wherever, but we don't really worship together. We don't meet together because that's just not practical. If we were to try to meet together, we'd have to find some sort of middle ground, and it would take hours and hours, and sometimes, in some cases, maybe a whole day, just to meet together for church. No, what we do is we find other Christians, other members of this universal church, and we decide we're going to meet in a specific place that's convenient for our location. Look in 1 Corinthians 16. I'll show you this sense of the word church. 1 Corinthians 16. And notice verse 19. He says, the churches of Asia greet you. Aquila and Priscilla greet you heartily in the Lord with the church that is in their house. Now, here he uses it in, a grander sense, in the sense that the churches of Asia, meaning all the churches, all the local churches that are scattered throughout the region of Asia, they greet these Corinthian brethren, but also the church that meets in the house of Aquila and Prisca there, and some translations read Priscilla. But I want you to see that that's the church in the local sense. Those are the brethren who have met, who have agreed together to meet in that specific location to worship and work together. I hope that distinction is clear between the universal church, the entire body of everybody who's saved in Jesus Christ, and the specific local congregations that spring up in different cities and in different countries and in different localities. I hope that's clear, and that'll certainly be helpful in understanding in our discussions moving forward. Thank you so much for your interest in spiritual things, and Lord willing, I'll see you next time.